this module, I want to give just a 50,000 foot overview of GitHub Classroom and how I propose that you use it as you do the App Dev with Swift course and how you administer your labs, your coding labs, do your feedback, and do your grading. So let's get started. The first thing I wanted to cover was kind of the basic objectives of what it is I'm trying to do in putting this whole mechanism together using GitHub Classroom. The first thing I wanted it to be an easy way for you to access all of the labs that we have available for all of the different modules. Secondly, I wanted the ability for you to easily create assignments based on those labs or your own labs of your own choosing. You can do your own things as well and distribute them to the students in an electronic form. Third, they should be able to work with whatever IDE you're requiring them to use, whether it be Swift, Playgrounds, or whether it be Xcode or Replit. This will work with all of them. Fourth, I wanted an easy way for them to submit lab assignments back to you, the instructor. So we're not taking pictures of code or anything like that anymore. It basically will all be automated and you'll see the actual code that they've submitted. Fifth, I want the ability for you to be able to go in and augment the code with your own comments and basically, give somebody a high five for a great job for the way they've coded something, or maybe suggest better ways of doing something. And finally, I'd like to do as much automated grading as possible. So that's not going to be able to look at the quality of the code that they submitted, but it is going to look to see if they get the right results or not. So let's jump into the requirements to take on this process. First is that as an instructor, you need a GitHub account. Secondly, each student will need a GitHub account. And these accounts are free. So it should be a simple process for them to just go in on the web, create the account, and they're off and running. The third thing is, as an instructor, you will then, with your GitHub account, enroll into GitHub Classroom, and that is also free, and I'll have a video specifically on how to do that. Fourth, once I know that you have a GitHub account, we at Northwestern can link up your GitHub account with our organization, which will give you visibility to all of the labs that we have available for the course. And so once that linkage is done, you'll be able to see all the labs. Finally, you need access to the internet via a web browser. And of course, for students and teachers as well, you're going to need access to the IDE or IDEs that your class is using. So let's jump in and take sort of a 50,000 foot view of how this process works. So what I have here is basically a little diagram that kind of shows that's you, the instructor, and this is your logical classroom, if you will, and you can create as many classrooms as you want in GitHub Classroom. Maybe you do one classroom for all of your students independent of period, or you do one for each period. That's completely up to you on how you want to break it out. And there's a concept of a roster that goes with a classroom, and that's where you would have all of your students listed for that classroom. And then over here, this is that lab database I was sort of implying during the requirements process. So once you've set up your GitHub account and you've linked it with the Northwestern's App Dev with Swift course, then you will have access to all of these labs, and those are what you're going to use to kind of build up your assignments. Again, as a reminder, you don't have to use these. You can do your own. And if you do your own and you really like them, I would encourage you to submit them to me so I can add them as additional labs into our database. So let's just say that you're at the point where you've covered a particular module on a theoretical level, and now you've got some practice labs that you want the students to do. So this is what you call creating an assignment. And so in GitHub Classroom, when you create an assignment, you are going to pick a GitHub repository. So you're going to hear me use the word repo or repository a lot. It's a container for all of the things associated with a particular set of code, in this case, a lab. So you can think of every one of these yellow squares as a repo or a repository. So when you create the assignment, it's going to ask you to pick a repository for your assignment. So you're going to pick one from our organization if you're going to choose to use those, which I would encourage you to do instead of reinventing the wheel. And then once you've got that repo set up here, then you're going to get an invite link that will allow you to, and this link right here that you see is the same link that's going to go to all the students. This is the invitation that you want to send to the students that say, here's the new assignment. This is what they're going to click on. So that gets sent out to all the students. You can use whatever methodology you want to send them out. You do not do that in GitHub Classroom or GitHub. You're going to do that. You're going to copy that URL and you're going to send it out via email, send it out through Google Classroom, through whatever LMS you're using, Slack, you name it. It's as long as you can get the link to them, they're good to go. So once they have that link, they're going to click on it. And when they do, they're going to cause something to happen. So as they click on that link, they're basically saying that they're accepting the assignment. And when they accept the assignment, what happens is there's a new repo created, which is an exact duplicate of the template repo that has been set up for the assignment. And that repo is now in their GitHub account. So now they have visibility to, if they go into their GitHub account, they're going to see that repo and it will be named appropriately for the particular lab that they are in the assignment that they're going to work on. Now, the next student's going to do the same thing, and notice there's another copy of the repo created for you, the instructor, and that student gets the repo as well. And then finally, the third student, there's a third repo created and repo put down in the student's GitHub account. And notice that as you look, and again, we're going to see all this when we go into the web browser, and I'm going to take you through all of this. I just want to get you sort of oriented at a high level. You can see who's accepted the assignment and who has not, and sort of push them along till they get to this point. So once they've done that, then it's time to start working on their assignment. And they can use whatever IDE you've decided that they should use. So if it's Replit, it can be Replit. If it's Swift Playgrounds, it can be Playgrounds. If it's Xcode, it can be Xcode. And just keep in mind that for the process that we're outlining here, at least at the time I'm shooting this video, Replit supports this out of the box. Playgrounds and Xcode. For Playgrounds, you will need to be on a Mac to do this. And for Xcode, Xcode has GitHub and Git built in, but you would also want to be you will need to be on a Mac for Xcode. So basically what's going to happen is the student, when they're ready to start working on their assignment, so they've accepted it, lo and behold, this repo has magically appeared in their GitHub account, they're going to clone it into the IDE that they're going to use. Now, for Replit, this cloning process is super easy. They basically just go into Replit, and I'll show, again, this will be viewable in the video where I take you through this as you go through Replit. You just pick your repository right in Replit, and it will automatically populate with the repo. And for the other two, basically, it's very close to similar. So you're basically going to clone the repo onto the hard drive in some spot, double click on it, and Xcode will launch or Playgrounds will launch, and you will have your code there for you to work on. So once the code is in the IDE through the cloning process, it gets a simple single step. Then the students are going to start coding, right? They're going to start working on their project. And so, for example, here we've got, the first student has already started working and doing some code changes in Replit. And then here's another student using Xcode. They're making changes as well. And at some point, the student should be saving off sort of a checkpoint where when they check off that they've gotten to a certain point and they've gotten something working, they want to, in Git terms, commit what it is that they've done so far. Does not mean that they're submitting it for review. It doesn't mean they're submitting it to be graded. It doesn't say that they're done. It's just a commit, which is sort of a spot in time where you record where you are, and then you can keep going from there. So the commit is sort of implied by that check marks when they commit it. And there's also a push operation which says, hey, I want to take what I've committed here and I want to push it to the repo that is associated with this. So that'll go to their GitHub account, but most importantly, it's also going to go to the repo that you have in your classroom for that student. So as they sit and make commits and pushes, you will see this updated again and again and again throughout the time that they have to work on the lab. And of course, this can happen with other students as well. So each student that is making code changes are going to be committing and pushing those changes, and they're going to be showing up here for you to look at. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that you have the ability to comment on the code that you see. So the likelihood is you may not comment unless a student has committed something, pushed it, and asked you for a specific help or question, or it's at the point where grading needs to occur and you're going through their code and looking at giving them feedback as an example. And GitHub has a great way to do this. It's called pull requests. Don't worry about the pull request terminology. The main thing is that it allows you to go into the code and really comment on specific aspects of the code. And when you commit those comments, those will come down and the student will see those comments on their code in their GitHub account. And it's basically that easy. So in summary, let's just briefly look through the steps again. First, you as the instructor will create an assignment. Secondly, students will accept the invitation that you sent out to them, and that will give them a copy of the repo or the assignment in their GitHub account. Third, students use that repo in their appropriate IDE. Students will commit and push their work on their lab back to their repos, and that's how you'll see a copy of it. And instructors can see all the commits and can comment as they see fit on the code, and instructors can grade as appropriate when the labs are finished.